Welcome back to the channel, everybody. We are here today to talk some Call of Duty, and I'm here with Hayden. Hayden is our resident Call of Duty expert and super fan.
Yeah.
Hayden, what are we looking at today?
So this is footage of a canceled Call of Duty that was in development around 2011, 2012, called Call of Duty Future Warfare. Now, this was being developed by Neversoft, which is a really interesting choice for a COD game because they've got a great track record. Like they've done like a lot of the Tony Hawk games and stuff like that back in the day. And unfortunately, they're kind of one of the studios that got like sacrificed under Activision and kind of merged into the larger Call of Duty machine. So it's interesting to see what like they would have done had they have gotten to lead their own title.
Yeah. So what are we seeing? We're seeing a little bit of what the game would have been, right?
Yeah, so there's a dev that said they had a couple missions done and some multiplayer maps. So this is one of the missions seemingly in full. So this is gameplay of a Moonbase assault mission, which is really wild to see and think about as a concept, because I remember when Infinite Warfare had its space stuff going on, and when that trailer came out in like 2016, it was like the most disliked video on YouTube for a while. And so to think of the fact that they were kind of already toying around with these ideas in a major way over a half decade earlier is kind of insane to me.
Nice. Well, it's more Call of Duty in space,
Well,
which
right.
some people might not be excited about.
Yeah, this would have been the first Call of Duty in space though. So it looks like, from what I've heard, this game was when Infinity Ward kind of imploded on itself, when Vince Zampella left and took everybody to make Respawn, they brought in Neversoft to make the game that would have been scheduled for 2013.
Okay. This definitely has a 360 PS3 look to it, for sure.
It does. It like aesthetically and just the quality of the graphics, but I'm already seeing this early in a lot of these elements, how they kind of got incorporated into set pieces later in like Ghosts and Infinite Warfare.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. I feel like that is certainly the case here. I don't know. I'm getting a bit of a like Mass Effect vibe out of just the aesthetics in it.
It's super intense. Yeah. And they were kind of trying to go for like a more grounded, believable space war, I guess. Okay. Because that was pretty graphic. Jeez.
Yeah.
So you're definitely seeing some signature like Call of Duty intensity here. You know what I mean? Of just like the way this is playing out is very much like a, shit hit the fan COD mission to me. This gun design is really interesting though. But yeah, I believe the timeline they were shooting for was they wanted this set either between 40 and 60 years in the future. So not anywhere near as far as Infinite Warfare, but this would have been the furthest COD went at the time by a couple decades.
Do you like guns like that where it's a little more like creative, just inventing new stuff, or do you like it when it's more like true to life?
Weapons? I mean, it depends on the setting. Like, I wouldn't want it in like a Modern Warfare game, obviously, or like when they did like the laser weapons in Vanguard at the end there. I thought that was too goofy for that setting. But if they're already going kind of sci-fi, I'm down for it. And the gun looks to me like really creative and unique without it being like absurd. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Somewhat believable. And here we're getting our look at a rifle here, which has like seemingly some strange side-mounted thing, laser sight.
See, that's what makes it futuristic, because it's at an angle like
it's canted, exactly. And I like the diegetic like on the actual gun HUD elements.
It's like in the movie, I think it's Aliens, where Paul Reiser is wearing a suit, but it's set so far into the future, so it has to be futuristic. So they popped his collar, and they're like, "There you go, future."
Right?
So,
yeah, I don't think there's. It definitely makes for a cool aesthetic, but I don't think it's necessarily more practical than just having a gun on having the sight like on a top-mounted pick rail. I think if anything, it'd be less practical, but it looks really cool. I will say that.
It's kind of like when you get used to, the like standard display thing in your car being like right over the steering wheel, and then you buy the car that has it like over the middle.
Yeah.
And you got to get used to that.
Right.
So
I will say this level, there's two things about me that's surprising to me. One, like, I knew it was built off the Modern Warfare 2 engine, but you can totally see that. I think even down to like animation, movement, and the HUD, and I'm sure a lot of that would have changed if they went further along, but it's very strange to me to see a game that like looks and moves like Modern Warfare 2 09, but is very much not.
yeah, that's a good point.
And the other thing I'll say is this level seems a lot more content complete than I would have thought for a game that got canceled this early. And there's a lot of interesting mechanics going on here. Like, did you see the thing where he had to pick up like the sealant to repair the suit? Think about to do it again, actually. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's interesting. Have you ever seen the movie Moonraker, the James Bond movie?
I have not.
It's like James Bond goes to space, and I feel like this would be an outstanding Moonraker video game.
Yeah, because it probably honestly is just the fact that we're looking at a game that's 10 years old and video games age the most of any medium, but there's something, or the fastest I should say, but there's something really retro future about this to me that I'm like really liking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the look of it. I like the feel. Really it's Call of Duty gunplay, so it's going to be smooth, right? And yeah, I mean this looks good. Would you have been like day one with this if it had actually come out?
So in 2013, I think so, because that was like probably the heat of COD hype, and this would have been the game that came out right after Black Ops 2. So we're in like prime golden age. Maybe it's waning a little bit, but I remember like I think a lot of people in the COD community have like rose tinted glasses and remember how they feel about things now, not how they did at the time. And I remember Black Ops 2 being set in 2025 when that game came out in 2012. A lot of people at the time, myself included, thought that was a leap. And obviously, you know, people settled on that and loved that
now
game.
It's next year.
Yeah, right? But I can't imagine what the 2025 is too far in the future. People would have thought about moon jumping and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because I mean, on the Xbox side anyway, you've got, you know, plenty of fans used to Halo, etc., right? So
yeah,
I mean, those people wouldn't have had any problem adjusting, but the Call of Duty community I know is pretty particular about what they like. They're like, it's like Madden with rifles, where people just get really upset over like anything new, even though they want it to be new all the time. So
yeah, exactly. Very tribal. The aesthetics of this are very much to me giving like prototype Space Force stuff. Like the weapons and the way the base is built, like everything structurally looks pretty grounded and believable to me, except for this pistol that I didn't realize until right now seems to shoot like an EMP blast or something.
Yeah. That would be an interesting game, by the way. Space Force the game. Like
like a Space Force recruiting grounds game, because the military has done like free to play shooters before. Yeah. So it wouldn't
there was
be
a
like
video game in the aughts that had like army branding on it, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, no, I remember seeing that. I never played it myself, but I had some friends who did, and it was that particular, those kind of games were very much in like the bargain bin a lot at like mom and pop game shops and stuff like that. Same with like, we should talk about sometime on content. I don't know how we'd make it fit, but there's like a really weird slew for a couple years where National Geographic, the History Channel rather, was doing like COD clone campaign games.
Yeah, that rings a bell. By the way, this to me doesn't look as nearly as refined as what we saw like inside the station.
No, agreed. Yeah, I think that it definitely seems like the Moonbase on the inside was like much more detailed, and this is just kind of like they're messing around and a bunch of rocks.
Yeah. I feel like we're on our way here, and I feel like this was 100% going to be a multiplayer map, just because of like how the rocks are positioned and everything, and all the, you know.
Oh, was that like
a space? It's a nuke in space.
What the hell?
It's like Armageddon, and Bruce Willis is here, and
this is getting crazy. Wow. Oh, and of course, you gotta have your classic Call of Duty. You get knocked on the ground, and someone picks you up, and you fall, and
ears are ringing.
I'm sure. Yeah, if we had audio, I'm sure there'd be ears ringing right now. Oh, the slow-mo death. Rest in peace, Riggs, whoever that was.
Mm-hmm.
I believe.
I just watched Rebel Moon. I'm about done with slow motion scenes for a while.
Oh, dude, tell me about it. They're doing like the suit repair thing a lot, and I wonder if that would have been a mechanic in multiplayer gameplay. Because that could have been, I think, pretty interesting. Because like, okay, so we've got so that one's over apparently by the
we've
Cap
done
Cut
this
logo.
one.
Yep.
Okay, so let me get our correct screen here to go to the other one.
Yeah, because we have a tiny bit of multiplayer gameplay, and I gotta try and find that multiplayer map screenshot because that list was insane. There was a couple interesting picks on
map
there.
Title choices, yeah. and I think we'll talk about them on our video game podcast, so check that out, Strange Awesome Gamescast, if you haven't yet. But I think in particular we might dig into the Bin Laden's compound title.
I genuinely cannot believe that was like
this is where you wanted it started, right?
Yeah, so this is multiplayer gameplay. So this to me looks, this is gonna be fairly early on, this looks just straight up Modern Warfare 2 with laser guns. Like, it almost looks like a mod to me.
I was just going to say, this looks like almost every other Call of Duty map I've played in a Call of Duty game. Like, there's definitely maps in games that are different from this, but there's a map that looks like this in almost every single game.
Yeah, it's vaguely familiar, and I don't know if it's just like the desert warfare nature of it. I think the map layout is very Infinity Ward style map layout, where it's not like 3-lane, it's just kind of like a clusterfuck.
That also looks very PS2 to me. Like, I'm gonna cue that up one more time so we can kind of watch through that one more time. But that looks like PS2, Xbox, OG quality.
Do you think it's just untextured, unfinished level? Because this looks very early to me.
Yep.
Yeah, and you have to imagine that multiplayer would be way less further along, right? Because usually they build the single player first and then pull maps out of there. And
well, I imagine too, you get a really rough build of the map, and then you're testing for flow, right? And how the maps actually function in a that type of environment, and then you go back and polish it. So I think that's where we're at right now.
And I think it said this gun's called a pulse rifle, which I'm interested in, like, what that means. Like, if that's like you hold down the trigger and it charges up or what. And I love that just there's his secondary is just 2 fully automatic Glocks being akimbo. Which is still very Call of Duty.
So what do you think? I mean, the Call of Duty that never was, are you bummed out that this was never in your hands? The disc was never in your PS3 back in the day?
Kind of. I mean, it's tough because it's one of those things where it's like, the grass is always greener on the other side, right? But I think, like, for the year that it was supposed to come out, yes. Because I think, like, I like COD Ghosts more than most people, I think, but I do think it was a misstep, right? And they kind of played it really safe, and they were like, let's do Modern Warfare 4, but call it something different, basically. And that game had some, like, near-future post-apocalypse elements, too, because I think it was set kind of, like, 20 years out from when it came out.
That sounds right. But it had Riley, and that's all that matters to me.
Absolutely. But yeah, I'm honestly not sure if the COD community in 2013 would have been better off with the game that we got, which I think was kind of safe and derivative, or something completely different. And I say completely different, but honestly, like, you're still boots on the ground, right? You still have that same kind of Call of Duty flow. So this, to me, does look a lot more grounded than the future games we ended up getting.
Agree. I'll say, too, that, Ghost might not have been spectacular for everybody, but I'm pretty convinced that any big franchise suffers in one way or another the year that a new console generation begins. And
for sure,
I think Ghost was an example of that. Call of Duty actually handled it better than some others did. When you go into like the sports franchises, Madden had a really tough transition.
Yeah.
Into that generation, like some of the other EA Sports games were even worse.
Yeah,
so,
and I think that's a game that would have benefited a lot from a lot of the modern features we're seeing now, like cross-play and free maps and stuff like that. Because the thing that's tough is if you think about it, like, I got a PS4 pretty early, like Christmas of that launch year, so just a couple months after, right? And so there would be times where I'd hop on Ghosts on the PS4 and there's no cross-play or anything, so I'm just playing against other PS4 players, and there might be like 3,000 people online for a game that's only a couple months old because the install base for those consoles was just so low.
Yep. And, even at the beginning of this generation, that was a thing that occurred, right? Like, you had to, at least on the Xbox side, which is what I primarily played at the beginning of the generation, you had to buy the Series S or the Series X edition or the, like, Xbox One edition. And
really?
There wasn't.
They didn't do smart delivery at first? I didn't realize that.
Not at first. Well, they did with some games, like first party they did a lot of, but third party not so much. So, it was still hurting in some ways for the player base. And again, back to sports titles here, but it's an easy comparison with yearly iterations, right? And like the player base for the Series X and S editions was it was bad. Yeah. Like the games didn't have much life to them, which was unfortunate. So, glad to see those changes have taken place. But yeah, I'm with you. I would have liked to have seen this too. I don't know. I like when Call of Duty mixes it up though.
I do too. And I think we're just in a time right now, like this specific moment, I think, because we got a direct sequel in back-to-back years, I think is the most samey 2 years of Call of Duty have felt. So it's easy in this particular moment in time to want something totally left field, even if in the moment we might not have actually, loved it. I do have, by the way, the list of multiplayer maps here.
Okay, go for it before we get out of here.
So several of these have legacy in front of them, which is interesting that it seems like a lot of the multiplayer maps in here were going to be remakes from the Modern Warfare trilogy. So we have Afghan, which was a Modern Warfare 2 map, Crash, which was in COD 4, Outpost, which I'm not super familiar with, Overgrown, Terminal, which I would have loved Terminal. Like, I can't get enough of that map. I'm so glad it's in the current COD now. And funnily enough, they did actually end up with Infinite Warfare making a Terminal map that was a spaceport. We have Whiteout, and then we have one called Apartment, which you can't really get much from that name. Right. COD multiplayer maps are usually pretty cryptic. These last two are fascinating, though. We have Gladiator Assault, which I can't imagine what that would be. Maybe some sort of like Coliseum style map, which I would kind of love, honestly, just like a pure arena style map. I could have seen
2042. Yeah, in 2042 there was a section of one of the like big conquest maps that was in like a soccer arena, and that's the first thing that my mind went to, was because you're moving around in the concourses and then out in the open. Yeah. Like on the pitch as well. And I think in a Coliseum it could be very similar, right? So that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Would have been like Sniper's Paradise though.
Right. But I think if they kept it more grounded where you couldn't get like all up in the stands, that could be pretty interesting. Because I think that would fill I think a lot of the like shipment 24/7 crowd right now would love just like a Gladiator arena style map. And then the last one we have is the one Tyler mentioned earlier, which is Bin Laden's compound, which I have a hard time saying that without laughing, because it's just so like absurd to me, especially if you think about the timing, right? Like I think if that happened as a map now, that would be kind of crazy and sensitive. And obviously there have been times where things have been inspired by real world events, but like never deliberately named like that, which if I had to guess, if this map did make it to launch, I don't think they would have kept that name. I think they would have given it something generic. It would have been named like
Compound.
Exactly.
And everybody would have known, like if you have a brain and you look at it from above, you'd be like, oh yeah, that looks familiar.
But I'm thinking, if they canceled this game in 2011, what year did they kill Bin Laden? Was it 2011?
I think so. Oh my God. 2010 or 2011, one of those two.
So that's pressing. Which I wonder how that would have fit into like the story of that game. You know what I mean?
I know.
So
No, that would have been crazy to see. All we can do now is speculate and hope that we don't try that specific idea again.
yeah, that would be ideal. They did do Eagle's Nest, though, in Vanguard, so you never know.
I mean, I feel like you've got a few more decades of distance between, and like, I don't know, it's just a little bit different.
Very true.
In a few ways, yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm interested to hear what everybody out there thinks about this. Are you sad that this game never came to fruition? Never came to be? Let us know in the comments. Also, like the video, make sure that you share it as well, and subscribe to the channel. We've got tons of Call of Duty content, other video game content, entertainment content on stuff like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and a lot more. So just subscribe, and you'll make sure that you never miss out on any of that. But for that now, I think that's going to do it.
All right.
Let's get out of here. We're about to go record our weekly video game podcast, so check that out again. The Strange Awesome Gamescast. And we'll talk to you soon, everybody. Have a great day.
Take care, y'all.